Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Have a special guest here today, one of my best friends on this planet, Mr. Kris Diggs, devout Redskins fan. We're going to talk about the Skins here today. Hopefully everyone's having a safe July 4th. Kris is the host of the Gym Class podcast, which we will have links and I'll have him plug his show. But first and foremost, I consider him a brother of mine, and we go way, way back. We've had a lot of good, bad, and ugly Sundays together. Myself as a Cowboys fan, growing up in the D.C. area. Kris is, like I said, a devout Redskins fan. So we're going to jump right into it. Brother Diggs, welcome. Long overdue with your appearance on this channel.
Yes, man. Thank you for having me. Definitely appreciate it. I'm happy to finally be on, man. I remember when it all started, so it's an honor.
Absolutely. No, you, Brother Jolly, all of our friends on the backside have helped me, behind the scenes and pushed me and inspired me since, day one, right? A1 since day one. So I'm so thankful for y'all and you're doing the exact same thing, addressing all the socially relevant fashion, music, sports topics on your channel as well. So thankful for you, brother. Now, in regards to your football team, because I'm going to let you start off in terms of the discussion here. I'm going to start with two questions.
All right.
A, do you think the term Redskin is a racial slur? And we'll just start with that question. Is the term Redskin a racial slur?
Racial, I guess technically, some may say it is. I think it's better described as a derogatory term.
Okay.
More than a racial slur, because I feel like it's not up there with the N-word, but I feel like some people do take offense to it. So I mean, it's I understand where some fans and the owner say it's not that, it's a name that people hold with pride who are fans of the team. Like, it's never, I don't think anybody who's truly a fan of the team is thinking of it like that. But at the same time, it's, people are offended. So, I mean, I get that aspect of it as well. But it's tough when the name means so much to you in a good way.
Sure.
But you don't realize that it could possibly be hurting people at the same time.
Sure. And that's a good point, because you guys have one of the oldest franchises in the league. I think you guys have been the Redskins since 1937, if I'm not correct, starting in Boston, made your way to DC. And this is what you guys have been as a franchise ever since. Now, in 2020, where a lot of people are reevaluating certain social dynamics, a lot of things going on. I cover a lot of UT football here on the channel. We're revisiting the Eyes of Texas song, certain statues and things that are here in the South. And it's become, some of it has become corporatized. So let me ask you this. Do you think, personally, do you want to change the name? And then what do you think will happen with Snyder and what they decide to do with the football team?
Personally, okay, I'm gonna have an honest moment with you right now.
Please. It's the only way we know how.
At this point, in this, we're 20 years into the Snyder era. Not that much success, far in between. And this point,
almost 25 years then.
Yeah, little over 25. It's a little over 20 because it's been 20 years at FedEx. But maybe there's some bad karma, some bad juju behind his name. At first, I was not, I was against changing the name because I felt like it wasn't intended to do that. But I mean, when you really look back at it, as far as like, the racist owner of who started the team, and
George
you
Preston
know,
Marshall, yeah.
yeah, and so like the team originally started in Boston and was called the Boston Braves, and then apparently they were trying to play at Fenway, and so to match with the Red Sox, they came up with the Redskins, and that's how the name switched over to that. So I mean, at this point, hey man, I'm willing to try anything to get some more consistent success. If that means changing the name, so be it. And I mean, at the end of the day, if people are truly offended by it, in 2020, we know better, so you got to do better. So I mean,
Well put.
I'm okay with it, but I am excited for like new jerseys because I've been wanting us to have some type of new jerseys. I guess this will force us to have some new jerseys and I feel like it's a whole new changing of the guard and culture. We got rid of Bruce Allen, thank God, and we can't get rid of Dan, but if we can
Hey, I told
silence
you
Dan.
Bruce Allen was a problem when y'all tried to, well, Vinny Serrato was terrible too, but even
Yeah,
after that, and y'all went to the Bruce Allen, Mike Shanahan tandem when Mike was actually the president at one point. That's a whole nother conversation
yeah,
that we can revisit that we had almost 10 years ago, man, when that whole
mm-hmm.
regime change went down in your organization. Because the thing is, growing up in DC, all I heard was Redskin sports talk, right? So I was behind enemy lines the entire time. So I was so well entrenched and just living in the area. And if you wanted to have conversation with people, whether you were a fan of whatever team, you were pretty up to date. Plus, it was some of the spiciest NFL news going on. Now, in terms of the second question of what will happen or what we think will happen, I think it's inevitable, bro. With
Yeah,
with the FedEx pressure, Nike pulling apparel off the website, uh, this isn't a question, and this is where the NFL plays in a very dark place when it comes to pandering, in my opinion, because it all becomes there's no question of like there's no organic moral compass here. It's just all right, everybody's making this move. We're riding this wave. Aunt Jemima's changing their name. Uncle Ben's going to change their name, so we got to change
yeah,
our name. And the Cleveland Indians are trying to follow suit. So you have all these corporate entities jumping on. I don't think Daniel Snyder gives two whatever about it until Nike stepped in and FedEx stepped in and said, this is now a conflict of business interests. So the name's going to change. Now,
yeah,
to what degree this happens in terms of because this kind of leads me down the path of going to what the new name will be, what pushback there'll be from the fan base, former players. Gary Clark, who was one of the prolific receivers, him, Art Monk, those all those guys in the '80s. By the way, before I even get to Gary Clark's comments, I do want to give a quick shout out and just mention Joe Bugel, who was the legendary offensive line coach for the Hogs in the '80s, and actually came back again when
Joe Gibbs,
Joe Gibbs,
2.0.
yeah, Joe Gibbs 2.0, and was actually productive again with Clinton Portis and the mid to late 2000s. He passed away, so do want to pay my respects to a great offensive line coach and somebody who's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was sad to hear that he passed. Definitely a big loss within the organization, just for the history and the success that he brought the team and was a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely RIP.
Yeah, him, Joe Gibbs, they're right there as the technicians behind cultivating that culture of the Hogs, and kind of led y'all to those Super Bowls and that mid '80s to early or mid '80s to even early '90s success. Now getting back to the Redskins talk and conversation, Gary Clark saying, "Hey, not only do I don't want to change the name, and here's why. We've gone and talked to folks, Native Americans at these reservations, and we've not only found that they're not offended, but some of them are wearing the gear and representing the name very proudly. They feel like it's a positive representation of them. And this is something that's kind of interesting because Florida State Seminoles have had like an agreement with certain Indian reservations or Native American reservations, and you have this complicated history of because it's also the mascot and the logo. Is it like the Cleveland Indians one? They kind of had to alter that a little bit because it was like kind of like instead of blackface, red face, and it was like cartoonish, and it can be deemed disrespectful. In regards to the Redskins, though, and what Gary Clark was saying, hey, there's such a small percentage, and that's kind of where it gets dicey, because if there is a percentage of people that find it offensive, you still have a problem, even if it's very, very small. So
Absolutely.
how do you feel about just some of the former, because I think don't you have a Redskins tattoo?
I have two.
You have two? Yeah, I mean, this isn't just something you can just wash away, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's just gonna be there. I'm not getting it covered. I don't have the word Redskins, but I have the logo tattooed on me because I mean it's my hometown team. It's where I'm from. I feel like some of the former players, and a big part of like my argument when this would come up in the past is like, there are actual high schools on these Native American reservations who have the Redskins mascot nickname. And I think I was watching something the other day, and they said it was at one point there were 80, I think, schools using the Redskins name as their nickname. I think it's down to 20 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big shift.
Yeah. So it's like, and then I was finding that as they're doing these polls, the younger people are the ones who are more offended by it now, as opposed to the older people who don't see, I guess maybe they may be used to it, or they don't have an issue, or don't have an urge to push for a name change. But at the end of the day, it's affecting the bottom line for Daniel Snyder, so it's going to change. Once I knew, until it affected his pockets.
That's what it was going to take. That's what it's going to take, because public pressure has always been there. Mm-hmm. There's always been this conversation. We've had this debate going back to high school since we all started becoming aware of these things, right? So the public pressure is always going to be there. It's the corporate entities, and when money becomes involved. And I'm very curious. I would love to have been a fly on the wall, because there were some some conversations behind closed doors before Nike made that call with Mr. Snyder, and even before the Redskins released that statement, where I noticed that they included a brief statement from head coach Ron Rivera as well. So there's some things already in the works. Now let's move forward. We both think they're going to change the name. I think they should. And I've always said that y'all should. So I'm going to go into my theory here.
Okay.
I've never been, I've always felt like, all right, DC teams, this is my theory, DC teams should have a patriotic feel and be like the red, white, and blue type of aspect. I've felt that across the board for all DC teams. That's just my opinion. Like the Wizards, I think the Wizards should change their name because I think their name's whack.
Back to the Bullets. Bring the Bullets back.
You got the Nationals, the Caps. The Wizards are rocking red, white, and blue now. DC United, like, I don't know. I just always thought it would be cool if, from a capital perspective, with it being our nation's capital, them having that unique aspect. I also think that there's a huge branding opportunity that the Dallas Cowboys have capitalized on, being America's team. Now, from a popularity standpoint and viewership and the eyeballs on our franchise, will always be America's team. However, there is money in that patriotic feel, patriotic aspect, and I think it's appropriate since we're here on July 4th of what you possibly could have with a football team that has that. Now, I don't think you guys as fans are on board with changing team colors and making
Absolutely
that
not.
that radical of a shift. So let me ask you this. What would you like to see in terms of changes, and do you have a preferred name in mind?
As far as changes, uh, I would like to see the colors stay. I understand that, you know, all of the other DC sports teams kind of have that red, white, and blue feel, but I do like the burgundy and gold being kind of like a standalone. It's kind of representative of the area's football team. Like, it's been entrenched here. I feel like you
But you
may
don't want to
lose.
do a whole restart? Just wipe the whole thing clean, or is it just more tweaking the name than anything else?
I think it's more the name. I feel like if you do too drastic of a change, you may lose some people. You may lose. I feel like you'll have more people upset, and then you lose some of you know, the history of success that the team has had,
That's true.
because all of a sudden you're starting a new, like a new franchise almost, and so it's just like you still want to have that connection to past success. And I feel like with changing the name, you can change the name, keep the colors. Maybe you will have to change the logo and design, but you still want that recognizable burgundy and gold for fans young and old. And then you can find a way to bridge both of those, and maybe expand it to like a burgundy, gold, and black, so you can kind of do a little bit more with it to
Mm-hmm.
kind of give it a new face, but with familiar features. But as far as the name, I've been hearing a lot, like, you know, I feel
Hold
like
on,
it's every few
I
years
want
they
to
come
stop you
out.
there. I want to stop you there, Kris. Hold on. So you brought your the way you just described that. I introduced you as the host of your podcast because it's relevant to what we're doing. But by
Mm,
trade, what is your profession?
I'm an artist.
Right. You're an artist. Like, that's what you do. That's how you make money. And you're a damn good artist, right? So I'm really curious to see, you guys in the artistic community, what y'all come up with in terms of ideas and stuff. And I like, because most people don't think about color patterns the way you do and how they
Mm.
mix and gel together. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention here because it's a very, very unique way that you look at that. But I'll let you continue your thought. I apologize.
No. It's quite all right. But yeah, no, I definitely look at colors differently, and colors matter. Colors have a meaning, regardless of the name. You know, especially on football, you have, you know, these distinct colors, and there really isn't anybody with this scheme of the Redskins. You have red and gold, but you really don't have that burgundy, that dark, deep red and gold. But I feel like, you know, you definitely want to keep some aspect of that. Depending on the nickname you go with, you know, they've done several different like mock-ups of where there's been contests to, you know, if Washington changed the name, what would it be? What would the logo and jerseys look like? And I've seen like the Warriors, the Red Tails. I don't go. I don't think they should go like too patriotic. Like, I've seen like the presidents and the Americans, and um, though
Mm,
I feel like it could possibly go there, because Ron Rivera just keeps mentioning the military with Native Americans for some reason. I don't know why. So I feel like they're going to try to somehow tie in the military with all of this. So realistically, they probably will go something that route. But my personal favorite, to tie in the past with the new future, is go with either the Hogs, the Warhogs, something like that, because that resonates with the organization so much. And
That's
then
true.
you wouldn't lose people. And even if you wanted to go with a different color scheme, you could still do that and tie in the past with it. So it's kind of a win-win on both sides. If you wanted to go with a common red, white, and blue theme, I just don't think you go too patriotic, because you have the Patriots,
That's
so
true.
you don't want to be like, oh, the other patriotic team.
Screw you, New England. We're going to be the Washington Patriots. We're also going to be Patriots.
Right. You don't want to try to compete with them, or then worry about having the same jerseys, because red, white, and blue is a very common color within the NFL.
That's true.
So you don't want to just look like just another team. You still want to stand out, and you still want. But I think if you go something along those lines, I've also liked the Washington Warriors. There's been a couple nice.
I think Snyder
mock
owns the
jerseys.
rights to the name Warriors. I think
Does
he
he?
owns. I think he does, because there was either like an arena team or some one of these random leagues that's now defunct. He got the name Warriors. So that is. I'm not saying that's going to be the move, but I think that's an option for him. I like your idea of hogs or warhogs. I think that's unique. Those of, like you said, people, especially from the past in the area. We just talked about Joe Bugel earlier, and that's, half the time at that time, people were just referring to them as the Hogs, and their style of play, right? So I think that would be something that would be really, really cool to pay homage to. I don't want y'all to be the Red Tails, and I have a personal, and I know, people have said, let's give a shout out to the Tuskegee Airmen and representing, especially time where, Black Lives Matter and that the whole movement of, really celebrating our history. People were just now starting to really educate people on what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, almost 100 years ago. I'm out on Red Tails, and here's why. That movie was trash. And it still closely ties me too much to the movie. I'm sorry. I understand, and this sounds ignorant, but I don't care. This is my opinion. I understand it would be celebrating the actual Red Tail squadron of the Tuskegee Airmen. However, it would just consistently remind me of the disappointment that I had with that film. I think that was 2012 with Michael B. Jordan and David Olewu and Tristan Wiles and all these, Nate Parker, all these brilliant black actors were in there, and the movie was awful.
Such a letdown.
EO was in there. It was an incredible letdown. So, just personally, I don't want to see y'all be the Red Tails. That would just no.
I don't think the Red Tails would work because it has no correlation to the area or to the team. At that point, you're really just pandering. Like now, you're just like, yeah. See, we care. We care about.
See, we gave you Red Tails.
See, we're the Red Tails now. See, like no, I don't. I feel like maybe if we were a Southern team close to where the Tuskegee Airmen were, maybe it would make a little more sense. But I think just to do it for the sake of it having the red in there and it, big upping black people, I don't think is the right move, nor would be a good look. I feel like you still have to have something relative to the area and to the team itself.
I like the Warhawks idea again, man. I hadn't heard that until you said something. I know a lot of people have. Warriors and Red Tail seems to be the two I see trending most on social media, But
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's why I wanted to talk to you as a fan, because you care so much about your team and this organization. I know you, and every day you're listening to podcasts, just like I am about my team, and trying to figure out what's going on with player movement, whatever. But at the end of the day, you care about the organization. You want them to be their best possible selves, and thinking about it in that manner, I think those are the type of people we need in the room to provide input. I don't. It can't just be this whole corporate push. And just we talked about pandering to black folks. The NFL's, they're announcing that they want to do the black national anthem to lift every voice and sing. Which again, if you're announcing that, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I'd rather y'all see y'all do what NASCAR did and just do it, because NASCAR actually did that last weekend and mixed it in with the national anthem, and they didn't tell anybody or ask for permission. They just did
Mm-hmm.
it, right? Like, that's what I want to see, because it was way more organic than you guys making some statement about, like, I don't like people, like, when you're asking white players in July, like, are you going to take a knee during the national anthem? Like, guys, stop it, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's like the pandering levels have gotten out of hand, and to me it's distracting from the real issues that
Yeah.
we're trying to address. But then the NFL also panders to the military as well. They're in business with them, so that's why I'm a little
It's
curious about that too.
I feel like it's a way to save face, because if you don't play the national anthem and they take a knee, then you don't offend the military, because it's the black national anthem. It's not the national anthem. And it's a way for them to have an out without offending the military, but still saying they support the protests and allowing the players to take the knee if they want to take the knee, or they're hoping probably they won't take the knee because it is the black national anthem. So now they'll stand. So now it eliminates the whole situation as a whole. So you got to be careful. Got to be tricky. The NFL thinks they're clever, but see through this.
I do too. I do too, because they're not genuine, and I think
I don't.
they're not. They're not. And honestly, the way NASCAR is moving right now in terms of their leadership is what I thought would have happened when Jay-Z came on board with the NFL. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Jay-Z or anything like that, but like, just thoughtful gestures where you're not asking or leaking stuff for public consumption or support. You just do it. And how people respond is how people respond. But they haven't cared. And they only have one black driver, right? So but yet the NFL is they've just been so weird about this stuff, and it's awkward. You know what I mean? And this Redskins thing, I get is separate, but how many owners are working behind the scenes to pressure Daniel Snyder to do whatever? These are all questions I'm curious about. But I appreciate you coming on, man, and discussing this, because definitely hot button topic, especially on here on July 4th.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me, man. It was good to talk about it, good to discuss it. And before we go, I just want to let you know who supports Daniel Snyder and not changing their name? That guy in Texas.
Sure. My
Jerry.
man has, Jerry, I applaud him. I will say this. He saw
radio silence.
Radio silence.
Radio silence. He hasn't said a word. Nothing. I guess it says, if I don't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
Look, everything's calculated with them as well, right? And so Jerry's the type of person, he's not going to walk back, especially the things that happened 4 years ago with the national anthem. He's not going to walk it back. And so instead of coming out there and having the tone deaf front that Drew Brees had, whether you agree or disagree with, I'm not saying it's wrong to stand for the anthem, or that's not what I'm saying, but when Drew Brees decided to disregard what people were upset about in lieu of that, I think Jerry Jones saw the backlash that he received, right? And so it's like, hey, I'd rather just be silent. Y'all can criticize me for not saying anything than jumping out here and getting involved in cancel culture, because it is running rampant right now. So I am not jumping into that.
Just had to throw that in there before I left.
Hey, man. It's been interesting because a lot of Cowboys players have been getting asked about it. I mean, I've seen Marcus Lawrence been going back and forth with Stephen A. Smith, and Jalen Smith has been very vocal. So it's, but then we have our good friend Ezekiel Elliott, who's been getting caught up with all this other stuff off the field. And it's been a fun ride on Twitter. So.
A little faded, that's all. Just a little faded.
Just a little faded.
A little faded, a little Rona. Got a little Rona, that's all.
I'm already on quarantine. I can't get faded now. You know what I'm saying? Like, sheesh. Yeah, so, hey, man, feed Zeke. That's all I got to say. Mr. Diggs, I will have if you don't mind, I would like to plug your stuff and have your links below. But as we conclude, where can the people find you, and what are some cool things that you're working on your end?
Yeah, so as far as for the podcast, you can find us. You could search us on YouTube, the Gym Class Podcast. We are also on Instagram at the Gym Class Podcast. Ooh, that is a little tongue twister. You can also follow me on IG for my artwork. It's at art_by_KD. Right now, as far as things that I'm working on, things are starting to open back up slowly. So business is starting to pick up. So, the sip and paint parties and things like that are picking up, and the art shows are close to starting back up. So, I'm just trying to stay busy. Quarantine has caused me to be extra creative to
Absolutely.
find new ways to keep business moving. And it's actually been going really well, despite everything that's been going on. So I'm happy about that. But just really just trying to keep that curve flat up here. I know you guys are having a little tougher time down there, so we're not trying to shut back down.
Yeah, definitely don't want to go the other direction. And all you guys watching us out there, please be safe, social distance, wear your mask. It's just our civic duty to one another. You never know who could have pre-existing conditions or be affected by the virus. I know the numbers say a lot of people are recovering just fine, all that, but for every person that does, there's somebody out there that is, having some issues. So just being respectful of that. I appreciate you coming on, my friend. I miss you guys, everybody at home. But it's always good to have one of my brothers on here just to rap about these things. And hopefully, at some point we can do one of these in person. So, Brother
Absolutely.
Diggs, thank you for joining, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Hit us in the comments. Should they change the name? If you have ideas for the name, if you vibe with my patriotic ideas, or if you even have some creative ideas like Kris had with the team colors, we'd love to hear it all. So appreciate y'all.